Welcome to the DisabiliTEA, a podcast where we have candid discussions about all things related to disability. Short-term, long-term, financial claims, impact on other areas of life, causes in the workplace, and more. With your host, attorney Anjel Burgess. You can find this show at www.disabilityhelpline.com and on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Now here's the host of the DisabiliTEA, Anjel Burgess.
Welcome to the DisabiliTEA. Today we are going to talk about a question that I am very frequently asked, which is, when is the right time to file for disability? Now the answer to that question is, it depends, but as soon as possible. Now I want to note that I said as soon as possible and not right away, because the short answer is it really will depend on the disability program that you are applying for, as well as your individual circumstances. So today we are going to walk through some different scenarios to help you to decide when would be the best time for you to apply for benefits. Now, just to give a brief overview, there are two disability programs. One is SSI, which is Supplemental Security Income, and that is the program that is available for people who have limited income and assets. So typically when we're talking about SSI eligibility, these benefits are going to be available for children, as well as for adults who have either no work history or a limited work history. Since SSI requires limited income and assets, when you should apply is going to largely depend on when you can qualify for SSI. So let's start off talking about children. If you are a parent and you want to file for SSI for your child because you believe that your child is disabled and will meet the requirements, then the first thing that you need to know is that Social Security is going to look at your income as the parent, or the household income if there are two parents in the household, to decide whether or not your child can qualify for benefits. So if your household income falls within the guidelines that Social Security allows for SSI benefits, then you will want to apply for benefits for your child right away. Apply now. If you meet the financial requirements, then go ahead and file that application for your child for SSI. And here's why. SSI benefits are payable technically the month after you apply. So the longer that you wait to file an application for SSI, literally the more money that you are losing. So as soon as you know that you can meet those financial requirements as a parent, go ahead and apply right away for your child for SSI benefits. Another scenario would be if you are a parent and you have a child who is approaching age 18. In that situation, if your household income meets Social Security's requirements, then great, you can go ahead and apply right away. But I find that in many cases, a child has not received SSI because their parents' income disqualifies them from SSI. But once that child reaches the age of 18, then Social Security is no longer going to use your income as parents to decide whether they qualify for SSI. At age 18, Social Security will look at your 18-year-old's individual income and assets to see whether or not they meet the financial requirements. And the financial requirements are much more simple at age 18 when they're looking at your 18-year-old's income and assets. If your 18-year-old is single, then the maximum income and asset amount that your 18-year-old can have is $2,000 per month. Now, this is $2,000, and really what you're looking at there is, bank accounts. Do they have more than $2,000 in the bank? If not, then they can qualify for SSI from a financial standpoint. Now, there are other resources that are considered. Do they own property? Do they own stocks? Are you receiving any sort of child support for the 18-year-old? So they'll look at all of those factors. But the kind of easiest way to think about it is, at 18, do they have $2,000 in income or assets? So if they do not, then you want to go ahead and apply on your child's 18th birthday or later. But at the earliest, you're going to wait until they turn 18. If you apply when they're 17 and a half or 17 and 11 months and 26 days, they're still going to technically need to look at your household income to see if your 18-year-old qualifies. So as soon as 18 hits, file the application for SSI, keeping in mind that every month that you wait beyond age 18, they are potentially losing money and benefits. Now, a third scenario would be an adult, so 18 or older, and maybe you're interested in applying for yourself. You have some conditions that you feel keep you from working, and maybe you've worked in the past, but you haven't been able to work consistently. So under that circumstance, it will be very similar. Do you have more than $2,000 in income and assets if you're single? If you do not, go ahead and apply for SSI right away. If you are married, then the income maximum is $3,000, but Social Security looks at your spouse's income and assets to determine whether or not you qualify. And between the two of you, you and your spouse, that $3,000 is the maximum. So if you have more than $3,000 in assets, or you just exceed it in whatever category you may fall in for SSI, then you want to make sure that you don't file an application until you can meet those financial requirements, because you cannot get any benefits if you don't meet the financial requirements for SSI. Now let's turn to SSDI, which is the other disability program, and that's the Disability Insurance Benefits Program for people who have worked and paid into the system. Primarily, those are the individuals that are going to receive benefits under SSDI. Now, SSDI works differently, but I want to break it up into two different scenarios for SSDI. If you are currently working and you are working a full-time job, you are not eligible to receive SSDI benefits. If you file an application, you're going to get denied. They're going to issue a technical denial because you're working full-time. And part of being disabled is proving that you're not able to work full-time as an adult. So ideally, what you'll want to do in that situation, if you are struggling with your job and you feel like you are going to either need to resign or go out on some short-term disability, or that you may be terminated, then it's best to try to kind of get your ducks in a row and prepare for the event that you are no longer able to work due to one of those scenarios. If you have the option of going out of work on short-term disability, then as soon as you go out of work on short-term disability, go ahead and file for Social Security disability. And that is because you want to try to minimize the amount of time that your income can be interrupted. With SSDI benefits, they're a little bit different than SSI. Remember, SSI can pay you benefits the month after you apply. So as long as they find that you're disabled, if you file an application on October 31st, then you can technically be eligible to start receiving your SSI November, for the month of November. But SSDI is different. With SSDI, they have a waiting period, and that waiting period is 5 months. So, using that same scenario, if you're having difficulty performing your job at work and you have the option of going out on short-term disability, and you go out of work on short-term disability, let's say October 31st, instead of being eligible when you file for disability, let's say that they approve your case super fast and they agree, yes, you became disabled on October 31st, then you are not going to get your first check in November because you've got that 5-month waiting period. So you are going to lose November, December, January, February, and March. So the first month that you will be eligible to receive a check is going to be April, even though Social Security said, yes, you became disabled in October. So it's important that you're aware of the fact that there is this 5-month waiting period and there could be a potential gap. And the same thing happens, if you have to resign or if you're terminated. As soon as you stop working, go ahead and file that application for benefits. For the vast majority of people, you're probably not going to get that approval so quickly, especially since COVID. It's possible, but I think it's probably pretty likely that that 5-month waiting period is going to come and go before you get your approval. But in any event, you want to make sure that you're able to maximize the benefits that you're going to receive. So let's look at another scenario with SSDI. Let's say that you're already out of work and you're listening to this podcast or you're watching the podcast and you say, well, I stopped working 2 years ago. I stopped working because of my conditions. I felt that maybe being out of work, if I was out of work for a few months, that things would get better with me and I would be able to go back to work. That happens to a lot of people. They just want to give it some time to see, am I going to get any better? And then some years later, they realize, no, unfortunately, I'm not going to get any better. And I really do need to go ahead and apply for disability, for SSDI. At that point in time, even though you've been out of work for 2 years, the rules for SSDI are not going to allow Social Security to pay you for the last 2 years that you've been out of work. SSDI has a rule in place which says that no matter when Social Security says that you became disabled, when you are applying for SSDI benefits, you can only be paid back 1 year prior to the date that you apply. So they give you a lot more leeway than SSI does, because remember, SSI is only going to start paying you the month after you apply. That's the earliest that they will pay you. But SSDI will pay you an entire year prior to the time that you applied, assuming that they agree that you became disabled back then. So using that same scenario, if I went out of work on October 31st of 2020, and I applied for SSDI benefits on October 31st of 2022, let's say Social Security comes back and they say, yes, we agree that you became disabled on October 31st of 2020. That's exactly when I stopped working because of my conditions, and Social Security agrees with me that I became disabled at that time. The rules do not allow Social Security to pay me back for those last 2 years. They can only pay me back at a maximum 1 year prior to my application date. So they can only pay me back to October 31st of 2021, unfortunately. So I've lost several additional months of benefits because I waited so long to apply. I waited more than a year to apply. So it's important to know that if you are in a situation where you feel like you are not going to be able to continue to work, if you're working, whether or not you're eligible for SSI or SSDI, the longer that you wait to apply, the more money that you can potentially be losing in benefits. And for SSDI recipients, that could be thousands of dollars a month that you could potentially lose if you've waited years before applying. So, that could be tens of thousands of dollars. So you want to make sure that you maximize your potential benefits by applying as soon as possible. The other important thing to know is that, sometimes people aren't sure. They're not sure if they're going to be able to return to work. They know that they can't work right now, but they don't know if things will be better in 3 months or 6 months or 8 months. I would still recommend applying because you're going out of work, so things have to be pretty severe for you if you're going out of work because of your conditions. Hopefully things will get better and you can return to work within a year. But if you're not able to return to work within a year, then you can be eligible to receive those Social Security benefits. But you don't have to wait a year before you apply. Apply right away. And if your circumstances change under those set of scenarios, then you can always withdraw your application later on and say to Social Security, you know what? I'm better now. It's only been 4 months since I went out of work. I, had the surgery that I needed and I'm back on my feet and I'm able to go back to work. And you can ask them to withdraw or dismiss your application and they will do that. But the important thing is to err on the side of caution and make sure that you're able to secure the benefits that are available to you or to your loved ones. For more information on qualifying for disability benefits, whether that's SSI or SSDI, whether those benefits are for you, for your family member, for your child, and you have questions about those and need some guidance, contact our office for a free consultation. This has been the DisabiliTEA, and we look forward to talking with you in the next episode.
You've been listening to the DisabiliTEA with Anjel Burgess. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and sharing the show with others. You can catch prior episodes at www.disabilityhelpline.com and on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more.